I'm doing a backup. So we are now recording.
We're ready. Okay. We are meeting virtually again due to COVID. So I will call the meeting to order at 10:02 a.m. Is Beth going to be joining us, or
Beth is
she's
also in the
Lyra?
so
Okay.
I'll be doing roll call stuff. Ready for that?
Yes.
Okay. Anthony Austin, Mick Jacobson,
Here.
Pam Leffler,
Here.
Diane McNulty,
Here.
Sarah Murray,
Here.
Brian Shepard,
Here.
Heidi Smith.
Here.
Others present are Rebecca Malinowski and Deborah Wishmeyer, CCS.
Okay. Any additions to the agenda?
I would like to talk about Vega just a little bit, if there's any place we can put that.
Okay. Yep. So Rebecca and Deborah, I'll let you kind of figure out where best to squeeze that in, I guess.
Yeah, we in business item E, we can talk about Vega.
Oh yeah, innovative updates. Awesome. Great. Okay, any other additions? Okay, a public comment. I don't think there's any members of the public. Consent agenda.
I'll move the
Go ahead.
approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second. That was Murray, second.
Yes.
Mick Jacobson,
Yes.
Pam Leffler,
Yes.
Diane McNulty,
Yes.
Sarah Murray,
Yes.
Brian Shepard,
Yes.
Heidi Smith,
Yes.
and Anthony's absent. Motion passes.
Moving on to business, the Tableau purchase. Rebecca, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that before we potentially take action?
Yes. So as I noted in the packet, it's technically like within my spend limit, but I wanted to kind of show you what we were working on with it, so you had an understanding of why we were adding another tool to our arsenal. So let me share this. We had originally, so this is the tool, or one of the two tools that Rachel and Bob are working on to support libraries who are doing collection audits. So it's essentially doing a subject heading analysis. We originally attempted to make this same tool in Google Data Studio because it does really have all the same functionality. However, our data set size was just too large. So it was Google Data Studio was throwing a bunch of errors and it was just not functional. So we were looking at other options, and I really wanted us for this product to use something that is open source or commercially available as opposed to a homegrown tool. I'm trying to kind of walk us away from some of our more opaque setups internally. So Tableau is, like an industry standard product for data analysis, and anyone we would have coming in the future who was going to work with us on like data related projects would either be familiar with Tableau or be able to pick up that skill set through a variety of, available topics. So the issue with Tableau is that we need to have a license for each library who wants to view the data. There is a reader product that is freely available, but it's very limited in terms of functionality, and you wouldn't be able to see and interact with this dashboard in the same way. So this is what Bob and Rachel have been working on. There's two different dashboards. There's a geographic diversity dashboard, which is what we're looking at, and then also a subject diversity dashboard. And essentially, it's looking at all of the subject headings. This is a subset of the database, but it can look at all the subject headings in the database and then kind of group and categorize them. So you can see on this dashboard, we can limit to just fiction. So this would just be adult fiction because teen and youth are specified. And we can say we only care about books. And then kind of at a quick glance, you can see that there's either no data in the subject headings about the geographic relevance of the material, or it's largely North American. And then you can see like Europe, Asia, Africa, South America, Oceania, and Antarctica are much less represented. And then there's an additional, so you're saying, okay, great. Like, of course, there's less stuff about Antarctica in our collection. What do we do about it? This title selected for analysis list down here allows you to say, and Deborah, if I do this wrong, you just let me know. Let's say that I'm at the Fremont Public Library. So I'm actually going to exclude Fremont using this filter, which is counterintuitive. But when I exclude
Uh-oh, Rebecca froze. Let me just see if we can get her back online here.
None of us care about Fremont anyway, right?
Okay, well, Rebecca gets herself back online. If you have any questions about the software, I think she did a pretty good overview of demoing it. And the question on the agenda today is just approval of purchasing the individual licenses for each library. The dashboard, the tool's not done yet. Rachel and Bob still have some finessing to do. As Rebecca had mentioned, we started building the product in Google Data Studio, but because of the size of our database and the number of titles and records, it became pretty clear when we were working with it that that tool was not suitable for our needs and the size of our database. So Rebecca demoed Tableau. It has been working much better. Bob is obviously attending some training and becoming familiar with the product. But at this time, we feel like it is the better solution to building the product in Data Studio or another source.
So can I ask a question? Because we're familiar with Tableau. We've looked at it a little bit here, and this is actually a product that we want to use here at Indian Trails. We've kind of gone back and forth whether we want to get a license for it. So, do we know from a licensing perspective? I mean, if CCS is buying the license, how does that work? Because the other library, like the libraries are actually going to hold the license, right? So should CCS be buying the license, or should libraries be buying that license individually? I guess for the product is one question, and then two, if libraries already have like a view only license, or if they've already have that license, do they really need a second license, or will that license be sufficient for them to do what they need to do? Is there any discussion or need to go back to member libraries to say, do you already use this product in your operation?
Sorry, I'm back. So what we would be purchasing, and what we've already purchased is one creator license for Bob. So CCS internally in the office has one license that allows Bob to go in and build the stuff. And so we then also have one reader license for CCS staff, so we can kind of look at it. In terms of who would hold the license, I mean, my view would be that just like, you know, with Innovative, we purchase the license and then you're like our authorized user. Although I take your point, if someone's already using Tableau, they may not need a second license. I'm not 100% sure on how that data sharing works, but we can definitely check on that before we make any future purchases. I guess I'm not 100% clear on your question about who, like, should the libraries purchase it instead of CCS?
It kind of looks like, at least from what you wrote up, Rebecca, that maybe for like what Brian is saying, if they want to use Tableau for other things at their library, they would need a creator license as well to actually do any of the actual work. So I guess that would be my kind of question then is would we then as individual libraries be able to purchase just the creator license if we're already getting, would that be the viewer license, the $135 each?
Yeah, the viewer is $135. It's with a nonprofit discount. I think it's essentially twice that without it. So yes, if you wanted, there's also an intermediate license called like an Explorer, which for our purposes, as we had envisioned it, wouldn't be super relevant. And in that sense, you are not able to like add data sets, but I believe you're able to work with them. I'm not frozen, I'm thinking. I would say that if there is interest from this group, based on that I'd be happy to further investigate if a viewer license or if that Explorer license would be a good option for a library that wanted to use ILS data and kind of work with it independently, or if they would need their own creator licenses. I think if you want to work with any data source that's not an ILS data source, you would then need to have your own kind of setup and your own creator license. So I'm happy to do some further looking into that. What I do think, Pam, is that you wouldn't be able to, like, if CCS is purchasing the licenses, you wouldn't be able to then like upgrade and just pay the difference to Tableau to get the other license, which is maybe to Brian's point that libraries should then be able to like select what they want. But we can do some more looking around at that.
Yeah, I just want to be clear. Like, I'm supportive. I'm absolutely supportive of using this product. It's not, you know, I'm not concerned about the product or even the cost of it. It's really whether libraries are already in a position, because like I said, this was something we had looked at a couple of years ago and have been kind of on the fence of whether we were going to, you know, try to implement it more in our regular work. And so if CCS is going to go this way, it might be something that we're like, okay, well, but we're ready to jump on and include it more. And so if that's the case, how does that work, you know, with other, you know, just with the connection of things? That's all.
Yeah, let me check in on that, and then we can, if it makes sense for there to be like an option of like which level you want to buy into, maybe CCS would cover the base level and then we could invoice libraries for the remaining. Or maybe it does make sense for you to purchase just your own independently and then we just give you access, but let me double check on that stuff. And then we can put just a poll out, like an opt-in option for people if there is more than one level that we move forward with.
So this is not technically something that we need to take a vote on. Are we comfortable with the general consensus, with the discussion that we've had, and Rebecca's going to find some more information out for us, or do we feel like we want to actually vote on approving this?
This isn't Rebecca's ability to make the purchase. I don't know why we should vote on it. I appreciate the information, but it's $4,000 for her limit's $5,000. I say we keep with the $5,000. Not worry about voting on it.
That's kind of my thinking as well, that if you start to get closer to that $5,000 threshold, or you think you're going to go over at some point, then maybe then we would vote on it. But I agree with Mick. I'm comfortable with allowing Rebecca to move forward with this.
Same.
Awesome. Okay. Any
I
other
would just-
questions?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to insert here as secretary that Anthony joined at 10:10.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Diane. I had wrote it down and I forgot to say it. Okay, moving on to policy clarifications, the Share Illinois issue.
So essentially, we need to decide how we want to handle non-CCS libraries having the ability to place direct holds in PowerPack. So I've given you some information in your packet, a little bit of background. And then in this case, I have given you 3 potential actions because the ILL group has said, oh, it's like no big deal, like let's just keep doing it. So I appreciate their expertise, and they're the ones who are going to be doing the workload, of filling those holds. My intention was to come in and say, I don't think we need to continue to support this. It's kind of a drain on staff time, and almost all of these libraries have other resources to place holds quickly and easily. So I'm happy to answer questions to kind of round this discussion out a little bit. I think this is an area where we could really go any way. When we look at the data that Deborah has helpfully pulled for us, you'll see that almost everybody here is an OCLC member. Our second highest user of the service is actually not a share library because it's Naperville and they're a standalone library, roughly. So I think the question is, if we wanted to continue this for LSAT members, would we also want to continue it for non-LSAT members? Again, it's a small number of checkouts and holds overall throughout the year. There is just a little bit of account maintenance that happens. And then, in the, how would we like to proceed, or do you have any questions where I'm at?
I think since Swan and Pinnacle are discontinuing direct requests, that there's a precedent set there and we could easily do that.
Looking at the data, is it like one family at Woodstock and one family in Naperville? Can we do that?
Oh, so to clarify, it's not individuals that are placing holds. It's like the Woodstock ILL staff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now I
So yeah. Mhm.
They could be filling holds for one family.
Yes. Yeah, but so they're looking, according to Carolyn Coulter over at Prairie Cat, all of their because most of you see the users are Prairie Cat members. They're all OCLC members, but they have traditionally found it easier to use OPACs than OCLC. But she says she's seeing fewer and fewer of them using this direct hold method, and that more are using OCLC. So this could be like a helpful nudge to use the tools that they're paying for. Or again, if we're making life easier for people, this is not a thing I feel strongly about. We just need to let the others know what we want to do.
So you say Rails discontinued support on October 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
To Share Illinois. I mean, that to me is a reason then it's time to move off the system. It's like it's becoming legacy. And so then it kind of becomes like, how long are you going to draw it out before you continue to support a legacy system, and it's going to just dwindle and dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And sometimes it's just better if you're saying it takes a lot of staff time, just splitting staff time, it's better just to pull the Band-Aid off. Other people are pulling out. It moves people to other tools. It's not like we're removing access because there's other access that's out there. So I would be supportive of stopping this.
Are you making that motion, Brian?
I am, yes.
Would you like to make that motion?
I'm trying to remember which one of these 3. I'm reading these 3 different.
It's the first one. It's the first motion.
All right. So I am going to make a motion that CCS will discontinue the use of the ILL for CCS branch and no longer allow non-member institutions to place direct requests through PowerPack.
I'll second.
Yep.
Diane can have it.
Seconded by Diane. Do we have to roll call that or voice vote? Oh yeah, we're on Zoom. Yeah. Rebecca, can you call roll?
I sure can. Anthony Austin,
Yes.
Mick Jacobson,
Sorry, yes.
Pam Leffler,
Yes.
Diane McNulty,
Yes.
Sarah Murray,
Yes.
Brian Shepherd,
Yes.
Heidi Smith.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the claims return process. CCS is suggesting a draft policy. Rebecca, do you want to give us a little bit more detail on this?
So there's some background in your packet as well. Essentially, when we moved to Polaris, we all agreed that we would use a minimum, that any patron could have up to 5 claims on their account, and a claims returned, or there's claims returned, claims never had, or claimed missing part, I think. Essentially, if a patron returns a thing and it doesn't get checked in properly, they can come in and say, I definitely returned that. And it gives you an option to flag that item. So your staff know that it's not actually on the shelf, but that it's not currently like generating overdues for the patron. So patrons will be blocked if they reach 5 current claims and a current claim has not been resolved, and claims can be resolved if the patron finds and returns the item, or if the staff member just says, okay, and resolves it and removes it from the patron's account and like marks the item as lost, essentially. So it has come up at the circulation technical group that that question of how and when to resolve a claim, and if, you know, do we just let them stay there forever, or after 4 years and 6 months, or, you know, like what is the time period at which we just say, we'll call this a loss and move on. So at the Circ advisory group, they recommended that unresolved claims should remain on a patron's account no longer than 1 year. So at that point, library staff should go ahead and review those and resolve them. And the circulation technical group kind of voted to confirm that, yeah, that sounds good. And then so that was just sort of like a guideline. But then at the circulation technical group meeting, someone very wisely said, can CCS just do this for us? So if CCS is going to just do this for libraries, we'd like to have a formal policy, since it is financial in that it you know, kind of takes away your ability to recover these items. So our recommendation is that we allow CCS to remove item records with unresolved claims if the claim is still unresolved after 1 full year in claim status, and then we do that database maintenance monthly.
I think if this went to the advisory group and this is what they think is the best course of action, and they're the ones that are on the front lines dealing with it, I wouldn't stand in the way of that decision.
Sarah, do you want to make that motion?
I would be delighted to, I move that we add a component to the circulation policy authorizing CCS to remove item records with unresolved claims as presented.
I'll
I'll second.
second it. Oh,
Ha. Jacobson second, not Leffler.
Ready for roll call, Pam?
yes, please.
Okay,
Sorry.
we'll start with Sarah Murray,
Yes.
Brian Shepherd,
Yes.
Heidi Smith,
Yes.
Anthony Austin,
Yes.
Mick Jacobson,
Yes.
Pam Leffler,
Yes.
Diane McNulty.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on to staff personal cards.
This is another one that our diligent Circ staff have been asking questions about. the question is really, should library staff cards be able to be used at any CCS library as if they are regular resident cards, or should they only be available for use as a courtesy card at the issuing library? It seems like libraries have differing policies on this, and looking at our neighboring consortia, there's not a consistent policy there either. It's kind of up to each individual library. This is a thing we've been sort of perennially getting questions about. So if we could get some direction, we're happy to draft a more formal guideline or policy.
Maybe I'm not clear on this, but or I'm not in my own head not clear. What problem are we solving with this?
So honestly, as I was writing this stuff, I was like, does this matter anymore? After December 1st, only one of our libraries will continue to charge fines. And the big sort of benefit of a staff card was the ability to be exempt from fines. So what really it comes down to is, if someone lives in a non-CCS service area, let's say a staff member lives in Deerfield, should they have to use the Deerfield Public Library as their primary library, even though they work at Northbrook, or can they use their Northbrook staff card and do all of their business, at CCS libraries?
So here's my take on it. I have a staff person who lives in a subdivision. When we were doing an annexation back in 2007, that subdivision did not want to join the library district. And so we left them out and annexed some other areas. And she's for the library, but she's not in a library district or in the village of or city of Crystal Lake. So she's got the benefit of having a card to use here, but because she's not paying $400 for that card, I don't want her using it at other libraries. So that's my take on it. I just don't think it's fair. And if you live in Deerfield and work at Northbrook, get a card at Deerfield. I mean, it's only really an issue for people that don't have don't live in a service area, I think.
We have a number of staff, and I know Zion Benton and others have a number of staff that live in Wisconsin. And so, Diane, I respectfully, I hear what you're saying, and like you want everybody to pay their fair share, but they're employees, and it's a very small part of the overall population. So I kind of just don't care, and I just kind of want to be this one go away. I don't know how to do that. I'd like to table this or whatever, but I don't think there needs to be a policy. The more we create policies, the more we have to update policies, the more unintended consequences that come with policies. I just am very hesitant to create policies when I don't see a problem. But though I hear what you're saying, Diane.
Well, no, I know, but you do it your way. I do it my way, same as it's been. I don't see that CCS needs to be involved.
And
Yeah,
yes,
and
that's
I was going to say, I agree with Mick on that grounds, is to say then I don't think a policy is needed, because I think it's a library by library decision, because I think probably same as Mick, we see it as an employment benefit, and I think that there's other benefits of people using their card as CCS to kind of know how the whole system works. If they're a staff member, then they can actually be a user of the system, which kind of gives me kind of a benefit. But I also understand the other side of the argument as well. So I think that it's really a library by library decision and doesn't require a CCS wide policy, unless the CCS wide policy is libraries can set their own policy.
I agree. The only thing that I would add to is we issue cards to our staff, whether they live in another CCS district or no district or whatever, because we want them to know what resources we have and to be able to access all of our resources. And so that's why we issue a card. Their home library may not have those resources, but it's easier for staff to promote things they can have access to. So that's why we give so I have a card at Palatine and a card at Algonquin. I can get all the ebooks.
One quick clarification. We would in no way want to say that you couldn't issue cards to your staff for use at your library. The question is, once they have that card, should Sarah's Algonquin card be good at Fox River Valley as well, or should it only be used at Algonquin? I'm still very happy to say that's a library by library decision. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page of what the actual question is. And the question is, can they go wherever they want within CCS with that card, or is it just, their Algonquin card?
Seems like a lot to police. Not worth the time to me.
Fair.
That's
Deborah, is there anything you would need besides we're declining to do a policy on this?
No, honestly, that's all we need. We get a lot of questions, and to have this group say we decline to issue a policy is, I think, enough to answer questions we get from staff.
I would say if those, are you getting questions from staff that have they talked to their directors about this? I mean, for us, it feels like this is the first time that we're hearing about it, but if you're saying that you're getting a lot of questions, maybe those people need to be encouraged to have those conversations with their library first, because maybe that's not happening, it sounds like. So
yeah, and we can add that to our communication piece. I think we get more questions from the libraries who do not let their staff cards be used at other CCS locations saying, why can a staff member from this other library come here and use their card? We're not supposed to go use our cards at other locations. So I think in that instance, we can clarify again that every library can have their own policies regarding use of these cards, and to speak with your director if you have questions.
we're all in agreement with that. Okay. Moving on to the Overdrive API changes.
Oh boy, Overdrive. So I did send on Monday a draft communication to Overdrive. I did in that communication focus on the collection of phone numbers and the sort of ambiguity of what that's. I mean, I think we all understand that it is used to text them a link to download the app, and that's that, but that it's not spelled out clearly anywhere, and that we want to be careful. As I put in your packet, I did receive one response after this went out. So there were 13 responses, 10 of which agreed we should communicate with OCLC either separately or together. I did include some of the comments that were like, I don't know, is this really a problem? Or, oh, this is actually helpful here in the packet for your consideration. And because there was some dissent, there were, Crystal Lake, it seemed like they were saying that they think it's a problem, but it wasn't clear if they felt what action they felt should be taken. So I've got them in sort of unclear / ambivalent, and one library that said this isn't an issue. I don't think we need to take any action. So because there were a couple of responses that are like, I don't care about this, I wanted to bring it back to the group. I'm happy to make changes to the email or to like the attribution as suggested, or we can just send it and be done with it. I tried to keep it looking for like actionable, like trying to understand what's happening and look for some actionable responses as opposed to just like, we're mad, because great, who cares? Who cares if we're mad? Literally no one. But we would like some more information. It might get us somewhere. So I'm happy to discuss it.
So as the chair of the Digital Library of Illinois, and Overdrive is they're making this change no matter what. I will tell you that's pretty much been communicated to us, and that we've tried to let our member libraries know, which is about 95 libraries now throughout the state. So I do think that it might be useful to have the group from us. I do share the concerns about the phone number. That's probably really the only concern I have, because I kind of fall into the camp that I think that the different framing actually would be more useful to some of our patrons. Also, the number of patrons that access Overdrive material through the catalog is so low that I don't know that it's really that much, that it will make that much difference. Though I do share the concerns about the phone numbers. So I guess I would, I'm fine with the letter that you have crafted, with that emphasis on, this is where most of our concerns is the phone number and privacy and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They're going to do what they want to do. So like I can send an email about it and maybe we'll get some information, or maybe it'll just go in their recycle bin, and that's fine with me.
Can I just ask, why are we sharing? Why are we sharing?
Oh, am I sharing the
this?
wrong screen?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
We thought you were going to show us something.
I thought you were going to say that all of a sudden. I'm seeing myself twice on the screen. So
Is that better?
there we go.
Thank you, Brian. I just really like to look at you guys.
It was starting to get disconcerting. I was laughing at myself, laughing at myself.
Sorry about that.
I mean, how does the board feel about Rebecca sending out the communication that she shared with us?
I'm all for shouting at the wind too, and seeing what happens. If it's going to just happen, fine, send it in, duly noted and all that stuff. We're the one who put in the 1.74%, saying that, it's not a big deal for us. We're happy. Like, I don't not share the same concerns. They're just not big concerns. And if Rebecca wasn't writing this letter, I wouldn't be, but I'm happy to be a part of it as Rebecca puts it together.
Agreed.
I agree.
And I like the shouting at the wind.
Yeah, so do I.
I feel like that's accurate to what will happen, but I also think, if you just think there's no point in sending anything, so you don't send anything, then nobody ever hears what the concern is. So,
But if somebody questions what action we took, we've at least sent something.
Yep. So we do have a potential motion. Does someone want to make that? Since we've decided on a course of action, we should officially vote on it.
I'll make that motion to direct CCS staff to send the drafted communications to Overdrive.
And
I'll second it.
I think Heidi was first there, or was this the first second? So Mick made the motion and then Heidi seconded. Roll call, please.
Mick Jacobson,
Yes.
Pam Leffler,
Yes.
Diane McNulty,
Yes.
Sarah Murray,
yes.
Brian Shepherd,
Yes.
Heidi Smith,
Yes.
Anthony Austin.
Yes.
Thank you.
And sorry for being rude there. It's not nice to gloat, but
Okay.
No, it's game on, Heidi. It's game on now.
Competitive motions. So our next item of
I
business
move. No, just kidding.
is the ICOC OCLC report. Rebecca, do you want to discuss this a little bit more?
Sure. This is yet another shouting at the wind situation that we can choose to involve ourselves in or not. So I linked to, apparently my link is missing in the document, but it is in your packet. I linked to both a background summary document as well as the full 56-page document. I had also sent that full document out last year, so you may remember it from that time. Essentially, ICOLC is the International Coalition of Library Consortia. So the LSAPs in Illinois are a member, Rails is a member, and it's just I don't want to say networking group, but it's a no-fee coalition where we have an email list and we share info. It is largely academic libraries until very recently when the Illinois LSAPs joined. It still is largely academic, but they have been struggling with OCLC like everyone had. Like all of these consortia have their own OCLC pains, and they put together this report, and initially it seemed like they were getting some good traction from OCLC and that OCLC was willing to talk to them. And then somewhere along the lines, OCLC was just like, no, you're not a customer. You're just like this nebulous group of people. like we'll talk to individual customers or like consortia that are customers, but we're not going to talk to you anymore. So the one of the members of the task force group spoke at the Rails consortia group meeting last month and essentially was like, this is it. This is as far as iColc can take this issue. If any of you feel strongly about any of the issues in the report, you should, get in touch with OCLC and talk with them separately. I don't feel we need to come to a conclusion today, unless that conclusion is either, yes, let's talk about it some more, or we don't have enough breath to shout at this particular windstorm. But I wanted to put it out there that it's something that we could, if we wanted to get into that area of like advocating for CCS members within this group, or one of our specific issues in Illinois is that we are members of the Illinois statewide contract. And, the contract is kind of at one level. You're either in it or you're not in it. And you're paying for services that like you maybe don't need. Everyone, again, is like paying crazy, ridiculous, different amounts of money. That CCS is smoothing that. So that's less of an issue for us. We would have the option of like approaching OCLC for quotes outside of the statewide contract. OCLC has said no one should bother doing that because it will just be higher and you'll all be unhappy. So, I mean, we could get a quote to confirm that. I think Swan was talking about pursuing that and has since shifted their focus to getting the most out of their existing OCLC subscription. So I'm essentially just putting this out there as something we can talk about more in future meetings or never talk about again, or somewhere in between.
So as I was reading this over, I was wondering, do you think that some of this will be brought up? I know that, Dee Brennan is on whatever the OCLC thing that she was elected to.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Ann Slaughter was on something with OCLC as well. And I'm wondering if, if it's better to share some of our concerns with Dee and make sure that they're brought up at a different level within OCLC.
Yeah, so Dee was on the task force that wrote this report, so she is well aware of the concerns therein. And that is essentially why she ran for the Americas Regional Council. And within iColc, when people were talking about like who to vote for, one of the questions was who's going to support kind of the message of this report, like of the various people running. So I think absolutely yes. Like we are hopeful that having some voices in that governance position, will lead to some productive conversations. This is not an area where I have a lot of hope that anything is going to be super productive and helpful. So if I sound like I'm just sort of like, it's.
I feel like this is something that we need to be kept aware of, but maybe there's not much that we need to actually do right now is kind of where I'm at.
I agree. I feel like this is one of those things where like you have the information, you may not be able to do a whole lot about it, but when conferences are happening in person, you can actually go meet vendors face to face. Like this is the kind of issue that I would take to a vendor face to face and meet. Whereas, I feel like that kind of stuff isn't really happening while conferences are virtual. So hopefully PLA is happening in real life, and maybe this is a conversation that can be had and some traction could be gained that way. I don't know.
It's a little harder for them to ignore you when you're standing in front of them. I'm sorry, Diane, go ahead.
Oh, no, maybe, we can, because of Dee's presence on the board or whatever, we can talk to her. It's a closer to home situation and perhaps that will help.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up with Dee and see what her, like, when she gets kind of settled into that position, what she recommends and how we can support her as she kind of tries to do some of that work internally.
I think that makes a lot more sense than us trying to do something separately from Rails. I mean, let's not dilute our voice anymore if we don't have to, right? I mean, Rails is going to have a bigger voice because it's obviously way more libraries than us. So, okay. I think we're all kind of in agreement that that's a good way to move forward with this is make sure Dee still understands our concerns and how she thinks we can best support her. Excellent. Okay, moving on to innovative updates. I don't know if that's going to be Deborah or Rebecca. Do you guys want to?
Well, I'd be interested in hearing from Diane on what she wanted to discuss, since, I mean, my report is in the packet and I'm happy to answer questions. So it sounds like Diane has one.
Diane, you had questions or you wanted to discuss Vega?
Yeah, because we're involved in the beta testing. My staff came to me the other day and we're talking about things. And I guess also from other things I've heard from other people is that everyone feels this is feels like this is a done deal, and we really haven't had a chance to look at other things. And I know that came up at the governing board meeting, but my staff felt that what they've seen of Vega so far is not particularly consortia friendly in that maybe it's consortia friendly with like a county system with branches or a city system with branches, but and this is the problem we had with BiblioCommons as well, is that we're different because everybody's got different rules for things. And things like volumes and came up, and how it works with EDI and putting holds on newest copy versus, you know, a patron could possibly put a hold on like on order now, and at that time, you know, when if we had Vega, could not do that. I guess the other things that people have put a lot of work into are the series and the Lexile, and that won't show necessarily from what I see, and scoping's not available yet. Is that what I hear? Is that correct? I mean, there's just so many things that we have now. Of course, they did say there were some things that were nice, but they said overall, is this like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back kind of situation?
Yeah, so I think that those are all really valid and appropriate concerns, and essentially why we are development partners, because it is not consortia friendly right now. It was built as it exists now. The functionality is for standalone libraries, and they're working on the consortium features now, which is why our timeline is pushed, because it's not ready for consortia yet at all. And in terms of volumes and the issue with EDI and holds, those are actually active discussions that we're having with Innovative now, because the holds won't work for us. And what is nice is that instead of them saying, okay, but this is how it's built, they're like, okay, let's sit down and draw this out. How do you need it to work? How do you want it to work? What would be the most beneficial? Deborah, do you want to talk a little bit about what that has looked like, or maybe what conversations have happened since the last time you worked with the development or the beta partners?
Yeah, so absolutely, Diane, your team is 100% correct. Right now, one of the issues that we've identified with Vega is that the holds logic for how Vega picks which record to place a hold on is not going to work for us. Right now, the logic, and this might be too many details, but Vega tries to pick the newest bib record to place the hold on, which isn't always the record that has your library's copies. So luckily in our testing, we identified this issue pretty early on. We did some thorough testing on our end of what's happening and had some internal discussions with the CCS team. And then we just had this discussion on Monday with the beta libraries as well to say, all right, what do we want to happen? What for us would be the best flow for how Vega would ideally place holds. So what happens now and what has happened a few weeks ago is that we brought this to Innovative. We gave them examples of how this functionality does not work for a consortia. So then they take that information that we've given them, the examples, the different scenarios, they take that back to their development team and talk through potential fixes. We do have to keep in mind that any fix that they would put in place would be for all Polaris customers, not just consortia. So it is kind of a balancing act on their end of, you know, what changes can be made to improve holds placing for us, what can be, how would those changes impact the other customers that are standalone systems, et cetera. So we meet with Innovative monthly. We'll have a meeting in a couple of weeks with our, like the product manager for Polaris, who's like our Vega rep, I would say. So then she will bring us back sort of a summary of the discussions they have and present some alternate solutions to us. And then it will be ongoing discussions until we can find a solution that works for both Innovative and for CCS.
Yeah, so in terms of like, is this a done deal or like why, some of those questions, we were very careful when we were joining the development partner program that we were not obligating ourselves to use the product and to go live with it, because at the time we were having those discussions, and even now, the product doesn't exist as we need it to exist to be an improvement for our patrons. So we have a signed development partner agreement, which gets us into the program and says that, you know, we're not going to tell everyone all their secrets to development, and that we, you know, are going to work with them in good faith to make this a product that's going to work for us. If that doesn't happen, if it's not a product that's going to work for us and we get to decide what that means, then we will not go live with it. We will not sign an additional agreement. And that's what we'll be working with governing board on in the coming meetings. But we're essentially still looking at like a year out because of the additional development that they need to do. So as I said at governing board, we're not really in a position to go to RFP for a discovery layer because, you know, as a member of the, we'd be comparing things that exist to a thing that doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit of a wait and see situation. And then if, like, I do think that we need to get some more information presented in front of governing board about what other tools exist right now in a more like informal capacity, so that when we get to the time where it's like, okay, Vega's up and cooking and looking really good, that you're making an informed decision based on what else is available in the market. And if that decision is, we don't want to go live with Vega, then we can say, all right, we'll stick with PowerPack, or we can say at that time, like, oh, well, let's really go and do an RFP and like see what else is out there. So it is a done deal that we're part of this program, but it is not a done deal that we're going to go live with Vega, although we certainly hope that we can work with Innovative to make it a product that we'll all be excited to go live with. And 100%, in no way is the product as it exists today the product we would go live with, for exactly the reasons, Diane, that your staff pointed out.
So I'm just going to say, I think that that's probably where there's some confusion, you know, with this, and I'm not faulting it, but yeah. I think that people need to understand that there's a difference between like beta testing, as in like this is a product trial, versus a development partner where you're actually like speaking to the actual features of the product, and you're like they're doing development based on the feedback on the product itself. It's not just simply like changing the way a screen looks. It's like wholesale functionality. And I just think that, you know, if we don't do a lot of, you know, not been involved with a lot of product development kind of stuff, it's like, I'm not sure that staff understand that there's a it's a more in-depth level of feedback that we can give to really, the intent of this is to ultimately get the actual product that we want, not settle for, what's out there, but like we want it to do exactly what we want it to do as much as we can. And that's what we have the opportunity to do through this development partner program. So I think there's probably just a little bit of a, maybe not an understanding of the difference between those types of things.
I think the development component is what's getting lost a little bit, that people aren't really understanding what that means.
Yeah, we can definitely work on that messaging, and we do sort of regular updates at technical group meetings about where we're at with development, so we can talk internally and refine some of the language we use to make it clear that like the best is yet to come. And I think it'll be, I think this hold stuff, as frustrating as it is, because hold is always the thing, I think this is such a great example that we can share to say, we're not finding this out during an RFP process and saying like, okay, I guess this is how it's going to work. We're finding it out at the stage where we can still make a difference in how it works to make it beneficial for us. So I think it's a really good example that we can help library staff understand. So I appreciate that feedback for sure.
Well, and I appreciate if the discussion here, because I understood it to be the development, but it seems like there's like an underlying, we're going to do this in April and we're going to do, and that's what's confusing people. I think the fact that it sounds like it's a done deal when it's really not. And I think that's the message that needs to be shared, because like I said, another director I was talking to on the phone, and she said, what is this? We have to go with this, and I try to explain, but I think it's better coming from you. So. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think I can, we'll be talking about it literally at every meeting forever. But I can definitely update, because the timeline is very like project focused on like, all right, how do we stay on track if this is what we're going to do? And that if this is what we're going to do is what I'm hearing is lost. So I can add some more like, here's how we're going to talk about it at the January meeting. Here's how we're going to talk about it at the April meeting. I get confused if it's April or May every time. Like where those decision points are. And that can include hearing more about other products in April or in July or whatever. And I hope that will help make things clearer and everyone feels a little more informed. Does that seem like a good, I'm seeing nodding. Okay.
Thanks.
Great. Anything else related to the innovative updates in Vega before we move on?
I do just want to point out that we're working on testing and monitoring text messages. I don't know if you've all seen the crazy uptick in spam text messages that I've been receiving, but I think in response, providers are cracking down, and that has impacted delivery success rates for CCS text messages. There's not a great way for us to track that. So if your staff are getting complaints, please let us know and we'll continue to test. In initial testing, it seems like number one, taking out any shortened URLs is really good. And then maybe a second step would be removing any links at all, which is frustrating, but better than some of the alternative solutions. And a different option moving forward would be to move to a third-party provider that sends messages in a different way. That would, of course, be an additional cost, and I don't think we're there yet to start talking about that, but I wanted to make sure it was on everyone's radar that there's an issue. And then just related to Overdrive, I think the discussion we've had over the past couple of weeks about the API stuff has been really interesting. Deborah did work with, was it the Digital Media Consortium? One of the consortia.
NSDC, the other one.
NSDC, thank you. To pull some Overdrive data so we can look at, like as Mick said, 1.7% of their checkouts happen in the catalog. How consistent is that across all libraries? We think probably very. BCS staff spend a lot of time on e-content, and we think it's important for discoverability. And we just want to take all of that into account when we're kind of doing our user testing and our troubleshooting. Like, what is the best approach? We don't know yet, but like, is it that we want to promote e-content more within libraries as a discovery tool? Is it that we really just want to have titles in the pack, but the integrated checkout doesn't actually really matter? Right now, I think many library directors and folks in the industry are thinking, if there's not integrated download checkout within the pack, that is a negative and that it's like a step backwards. And I'm interested in learning more through the data and perhaps some user testing on like if people actually care. In the meantime, we're going to continue to push for efficient, easy to use integration. But this is an area that I'm asking my team to look at a little bit more closely based on some of the conversations we've had. So I'm happy to answer questions, and we'll certainly provide updates if anything of interest comes from that.
Okay, anything else related to that? Doesn't look like it. Okay, COVID-19.
I don't have any COVID related things. I just have it kind of as a placeholder.
Anyone want to share anything about COVID that's happening at their library or not happening? Brian had said earlier that it was nice to get back to doing more just library director things this week and not think about COVID. So great. Okay, now we are moving on to closed session. I will adjourn the meeting to closed session at 11:04. Wait, do I have to call roll for this? To adjourn to closed session?
I think you have to state the statutes for your
Yeah.
turning into closed session.
So we will be adjourning to closed session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120-/2C21 for discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for the purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by section 2.06.
So we're adjourning right now, right?
At 11:04, yes.
Okay, so then I'm going to stop.
Are we discussing the other?
We will not, I thought as per our email conversation that we would hold off on the director review until December, just because of
Okay,
everyone's
that's fine.
schedule.
I just wanted to make sure if we wanted to have any conversation about it, but I'm okay waiting.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
If
I'm
we
going to
could wait,
stop I'm going to stop our recording and then restart so we can restart the closed session.